What is good, my people? We are live back again with another episode of the forecast. Even though it's not an episode, but I just wanted to come on and talk to the people before I get started on the next episode. And you want to make sure you subscribe to my backup channel. It's the Forecast Radio 24 because you want to make sure you get the next video before YouTube deletes it. But I just wanted to come on here and talk to the people a little bit tonight. And you know, I was earlier today. I was talking to an older person, and we was talking about the election, and they got mad at me because I said I don't care I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden just to get Donald Trump out of office. And they got mad at me like, why would you say that? Why wouldn't you want Donald Trump out of office? And the more I tried to explain that, they're the same, they tried to tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about. Now, in the black community, we are divided into so many fractions, and their politics should not be a fraction in which we're divided by, but unfortunately we are. But and this person, they blamed it on the age difference, and you're a millennial. And I said it before, I kind of feel like the children of the civil rights generation, maybe that was like in school during the late 60s, early 70s. They may be the only generation of black people in America that didn't really recognize who the enemy was. And I'm not saying everybody, and it's just a general statement. But you got to understand, they are the first generation to be in integrated schools. It was different from them for them, right? And a lot of those separations trickle down in today. But as a community, we have so many differences, and age has always been one of them. And just having this conversation, they're saying, well, you just don't know what you're talking about. But the more I said, well, you want to get Donald Trump out of office, well, Joe Biden has done every single thing that you know Donald Trump said he was going to do. Donald Trump didn't really necessarily do anything that he said he was going to do. All of these candidates talk about quote unquote law and order, but Joe Biden actually passed these laws. And back in 1994, when everybody was calling Bill Clinton the first black president, all of these people were getting locked up. And this older person said, you know what? I don't care if every person in my family got locked up, doing or because of Joe Biden's crime bill. I'm still voting for him just to get Donald Trump out of office because Donald Trump is racist. Even though Joe Biden has been siding with racists, with segregationists since the 70s, right? A lot of people stood up for Bernie Sanders, but he's always voted against civil rights things. But apparently, you have to be a certain age to know what you're talking about. And it's just divides like this that's going to keep us in a perpetual cycle, right? The older generation not being on code with the younger generation. Yeah, the 94 crime bill. What's going on, brother Bakari? Yeah, and you got to think about what was going on in 94, right? Everything had just happened with the LA riots in 92, and then the riots in New York in 91, and then the whole OJ Simpson thing, which was, a showcase of how America is. And back then, Bill Clinton literally used a black woman to get elected as president when he went after Sister Soldier for what she was saying about the LA riots. But if you speak on Bill Clinton back then, It was a problem. Just like if you speak on Obama today, is a problem. Just like if you say I'm not voting for Joe Biden just to get Donald Trump out of office is a problem. What's going on, brother Royal? And y'all can call in whenever you want. 'Cause I'm just you know, I'm just here to talk to the people right now. But we have to talk about the divisions in our community, and this is just one of them. And we're adding to them by creating divisions, with political parties that have nothing to do with us. When both sides are doing the same thing. And I told this older person that back in 1994, 1993, Joe Biden was on the Senate floor talking about how he wants us away from his his wife, his mom, his drug addicted children. But I'm too young to know anything. But that's just one way that plays into it, and that affects the leadership. You know, a lot of people from the civil rights generation that are still around, they feel like what they did as far as integration was their chance was their you know was was the way to end racism, but obviously it doesn't work, and we have the benefit of seeing the outcome, but they feel like we have to participate in this system in order to change it. But the problem is, right, if you take the root out of something, it won't be able to survive, and racism is the root of America. Yeah, yeah, molester, just like Donald Trump or alleged. There's no difference between the two of them. But certain people in the older generation, and a lot of times those are the people that are going to be elected as your leader. Yeah, Hillary Clinton was calling black kids super predators. But in 2016, they're saying, "Oh well, is black people's fault for not going out to vote for her?" Well, why would we do that when she did the things Donald Trump said he was going to do? And back in the 60s, when LBJ said, "I'll have these niggas voting Democrat for 200 years," he got up to 50 years so far. But that generation, and every generation after uh since integration have been sent to schools with white teachers, taught white history, not taught their real history. Everything they see, black is bad, white is right. Everything pushed towards us is the white savior complex. And for especially a younger person to say, that white savior thing just isn't going to work. Now, all of a sudden, I'm being radical. And that's not to go against the work the ancestors have done, because the work they have done has gotten us in the position that we are in, which is a lot better off than 100 years ago. But, not only that, it definitely hurt with gender relations. Now we have this huge gender war, and it's difficult for us to stay on code. And we like to say, as black people, we are the only group of people that do such and such. But we are not the only group of people that does it. We're just in a position where it hurts us more than it'll hurt anybody else. So we can't afford to do stuff like that. Yeah, it always love for the enemy more than love for yourself. But that is mostly a reflection of self hate. But we as a people are in a tough situation on both sides. And instead of blaming, another group within our group, like black men blaming black women or black women blaming black men. We have to get on code and recognize, the enemy. But it's it's harder for us to attack the enemy than it is to attack each other, because at the end of the day, we are defenseless, right? They have a whole government, a whole military, a whole prison industry to protect them. So you're gonna think twice about coming at them, but it's no problem at us coming at each other. And those things like that are gonna keep us divided, because the number one war strategy, divide and conquer. If your enemy is divided, it's easy for you to take over. Because we always like to say minority and include black people in minority, but worldwide black people are not a minority, white people are. But if you can divide people into different cultures, into different sections, then you can make everybody else a minority, right? And instead of saying I'm Irish, I'm German, I'm Italian, I'm English, we'll just say I'm white. But for us, instead of saying I'm black or whatever we want to call ourselves, we say, no, I'm not black, I'm Dominican. Or I'm not black, I'm Ghanaian. But they understand, like, is power in numbers. So if we keep dividing ourselves into factions and then divide those factions into factions, is an issue. And I'm not saying that everybody has to agree with everything everybody has to say, because nobody's going to agree with everybody. Some people just aren't going to like each other. And that happens. But you don't have to like each other to not want to be in the position that we are in. And honestly, that's why I don't really like to bring up religion into it, because religion is another thing that really divides the people. And I say it all the time, we have to get rid of our tribalism. And the religion is one of those things, because at the end of the day, it's basic stuff that we can all agree on that'll end all of this stuff. And it's nothing that we have to reinvent the wheel. We have the blueprint. We just have to learn how to protect what we do build. Because when there was no illusion of inclusion, right, we understood we had to support each other, because they hated us so much we couldn't even spend our dollars in their stores. We talk about Tulsa, Oklahoma, but that was everywhere, because it wasn't like segregation was only in Tulsa. It was Black Wall Streets everywhere, because there was no choice. It didn't care if one person was a certain religion and the other person wasn't, or one person was older and the other person wasn't. They just had no other choice but to support each other's businesses. And during that time, like people always try to mention, we were the most married, we had the strongest family unit. And, we understood who the enemy was. But if they can find a way to distract you and, make you think we're the enemy, yeah, people do use religion just as the tool to keep people in bondage. Period. Whether it be chattel slavery or not, because before race, that's the thing that people fought each other over, was religion, and people enslaved other people based off religion. And even in America, at the very beginning, even white people followed the rules of, if there are rules to slavery, they followed the rules to slavery, where you couldn't enslave another Christian for life, or if you're a Muslim, you couldn't enslave another Muslim for life. But then when it started changing over, to race, right? They didn't care if you was a black Christian or not. But I can see where those concepts come from, because there was a point in time where you could have said, I'm a black Christian in the like 400 years ago, and it was a chance where you could win your freedom in court. But that stuff changed in the mid 1600s. And people's faith is people's faith, and you can't force your faith on anyone else. And you have to respect other people's faith. You can't attack what they believe in. And people may not necessarily believe what I believe in, but none of that stuff really matters at the end of the day if we understand the situation we are in. And instead of blaming each other for the situation, we're here now. We have to fix it, right? And we do need to understand the history to understand how we got here. And the particular situation that we are in is a lot of the effects come from the crack epidemic of the 80s, right? That's when, the single parent issues and a lot of the violence really started to change. It was a lot of the, drugs. And that's why we have to be prepared, for the next move that the enemy does, because the enemy will do moves that you don't even see coming, and they'll try to act like they never even did it. And then blame the victim for what happened. But, now we're at a point where we are in a position where we're recovering from, the drug epidemic or whatever. But we have to start getting control of our own children's minds and instilling black pride, black love into them. And, people been sharing this post on Facebook where, this guy said, I'm a educated black man, and one of those posts, and blame it on black women, and those are the posts likewise. And I'm not even gonna lie, a lot of issues that occur with this system does expose the problems that we have in our community, and problems that we're gonna have to work on even when the system is destroyed. And by the way, y'all can call in. I'm just talking right now. If anybody want to call in, the number right there on the screen is 804-601-4015. But that generation, created, that move created a lot of problems. And right now we can, and the internet does help, but we can, send our kids to, you know, make some kind of thing in our neighborhood where we can send our kids to learn specifically Black history, and specifically to instill Black love into them. Because blaming the other side, it has to stop. And there are issues on both sides, but but as far as the gender wars, we're trying to look at each other through the eyes of Europeans. But this is not our system. It was not designed for it. But we judge each other based off our merit or what we've accomplished in the system. Even though if you're successful in the system, that means the system was designed to destroy you. So to be successful is really to be not something negative or something opposite of yourself. And that's not to say if somebody's successful, they're not black pride, but that's what this system is designed to do. That's why the people that get in position, especially who seem like they're in positions of power, they do nothing but regurgitate the words of their superiors. All right, this first call. Yo, what's going on, brother Bakari?
Peace, brother Forecast. How you doing, my brother?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Man, I'm absolutely magnificent, man. Black and beautiful. Staying corona free. Look, man, this is a very important topic that you did, this on Black division. Actually, I had planned the show for tomorrow. We was going to call it Unity. But this is very, very, very important because this is something that needs to be discussed. So, like, it should make a difference what your title is, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't care if you're Hebrew or Moor or Aboriginal, Christian, Muslim. At the end of the day, we had the same fight. It was like the last show was on. I had a nice little chat with this guy, Wild C44, right? And didn't necessarily agree with him being ADOS, and we had words, but I just want to let him know, there ain't no problem. We going the same route, we might get there different. I think it's okay for us to be a little different and have different ideas as long as we have to disagree on certain things, as long as we're going the same way. All right? And if we're going the same way and we have the same agenda to fix us, we should be able to work together. Excuse me. And I heard you were talking about black towns, and I heard you mention, the military, right? And what we're going through now, if you're a student of history and you study history, be it novice or intermediate, you can go back 10,000 years. What's going on right now with this coronavirus? Because I see it as like biological warfare, right? So I see it like, let's say, the Chinese people send it here. But I've seen white Europeans want to dominate the world. I've seen the Euro Asians back in time with the Ottoman take want to dominate the world. You've seen the Orientals with Genghis Khan want to dominate the world. But there have been one group of people that have never built a military to say, we're going to travel around the world and try to dominate the world. And that has been us. And we have been conquered here and conquered everywhere else where we don't even build a military or something to defend ourselves. I understand all the pressure and everything and all the torture and torment that we have been under in this country. So, I understand some people being afraid because of everything that has happened. But in all honesty, if we're going to build a community, we're going to have to learn to respect those Second Amendment rights. Because there was a guy in Georgia a few days ago, I don't know if you heard of it, in Brunswick, Georgia, running through his neighborhood. Two white guys in a pickup drove behind him, shot him, and killed him. And I see stuff on Facebook, and we complaining about those white people having guns. But we have the same opportunity and the same right to buy guns. And if you had the same thing that they have, they will stop. Like you say, we will fight one another, but we have so much. One guy put in the chat, I think it was Brother Roy O, say, love always seeks out for the enemy. We always figure out a way to let our love show for everybody else, but we don't let that love show for us. And what we have gone through and what we have been going through during this pandemic, if we don't see it's a time to stop fighting and a time to come together and a time to figure out how we are going to take care of ourselves and stop being the most dependent people in this country. Not independent, but dependent on everybody else, dependent on the system for everything. Like they own all the grocery stores. We don't even feed ourselves. So I have a friend, me and her, we're getting together. We're trying to purchase a little smaller. We're going to do a community garden. We're going to start a community garden to the people that want to come help with the garden. So we can start at least showing an effort of us feeding ourselves. And then hopefully through that will bring some type of unity. Like I say, me and my homeboy, we've started working on our fishing and hunting club. You know, we trying to get a piece of land to get us an outdoor range. But we do gun training, we do fishing, and we don't care as long as you're black. We don't care about your title. We want you to join. We're even buying a machine to make bullets, and hopefully, in the next few months, once we have everything going, well, we can sell the ammo, so we can start depending on ourselves. And with all these black divisions, like you said, with all these different titles that we put before our race, it's hard for us to come together. So for me, I put down those titles because we had the same thing. So to anybody in the chat that I ever offended by anything that I typed in there, maybe about your religion or your affiliation, and I think I did with some things I said your last show with the guy in there, YC44. You know, I don't mean no harm. It ain't nothing but love from this way. We brothers and sisters, and this is something we're going to have to figure out together. And now is the time to stop all of the fight, stop all of the infight, and come up with a plan so we can take care of one another. And, brother, that's all I had to say.
I appreciate the call, my brother.
All right, man. Peace.
All right, thank you. Yeah, and if anybody else want to call in, the number is 804-601-4015. You know, I'm just coming on here just to talk to the people, and you know, the brother is right. He made some good points, and you know, like they've always used, you know, that kind of thing, and they'll get a leader and they'll put him in a position to talk about another leader, right? Just to create divisions amongst the people who follow certain ideals, right? And we, as a spirited people, we're going to disagree, and sometimes, you know, we're going to roast people, and sometimes it's going to be funny, right? But we have to find a way to stop taking stuff personally, you know, when we discuss issues, right? Because politics in America is nothing but, you know, and I hate to break it down like this, but it's nothing but problems that white people have. That's the issues that they have amongst themselves. And we're trying to, you know, fit in and, you know, put on, you know, their clothing and study at their institutions and speak their language to fit into their system instead of worrying about fitting into our own system and having, you know, trust in one another and faith in one another that we could build our own system and faith that our systems will work. And you know, the brother mentioned, you know, the stuff they were talking about ADOS or whatever, and though that's a whole nother division with people feeling like they're from other places. And you know, there are people from other countries who say, you know, they feel like black Americans don't love them or like them, and vice versa. Black Americans feel like people from other places don't like us. But in reality, what we're doing is taking the word of the middleman and then, you know, applying that when we see each other. That's like, you know, both of y'all enemies coming back and say, well, that man said he don't like you. He said your shirt is ugly and blah blah blah, right? And then, but we're taking his word for it. And then when we see that person is on, and we're beefing in between. And we have to understand that on all sides, our histories have been destroyed, right? In a lot of these African countries, right, they got their independence in the 60s during the civil rights movement. And even then, it wasn't real independence. It was these people installing quote unquote democracies and putting their own leaders into these nations and intentionally selling out these nations. And it's still happening today. And right now, it's Asians fighting whites over Africa, but we're sitting here arguing against with each other instead of, you know, finding a way to work with them, you know. And we need land. We both have ideas we can contribute to each other. And, you know, at the end of the day, instead of saying, okay, we're just going to unify on that we're black or whatever we want to call ourselves, because we're in a position where we can call ourselves whatever we want to call ourselves. We can create whatever we want to create. And that's why we got to understand, you know, we can't keep falling for the same divisions, the same argument, using the same tools. And like I said on the last show, we was talking about the one draw rule. And that's been another way they've always been able to sow division. And that's a tricky topic because sometimes there are people who identify with the white side but will gladly come to the black community and tell us what we need to do and carry out the mission. But at the same time, there will be people who are biracial who will identify as black and be fully down for the cause. But that in itself is a whole nother issue. But it's not a it's not a surprise. It's not a mystery on how this happened, right? It's not a mistake. All of this was designed to be this way. And we have to understand the system of white supremacy. It didn't just start at full force. It was created slowly, bit by bit, over time, and it's still being created. Right? A lot of the things that come with white supremacy is nothing but a response to the issues they were having. Because even though we aren't taught it, we were fighting back from day one. And we as a people, it's hard to say we're any one thing because we come from all over. A lot of times, especially during slavery, they may come from places where they don't even speak the same language. So it's hard for them, to communicate. But a lot of times they found a way. But anybody want to call in, you can call in. The number right there on the screen is 804-601-4015. But they couldn't even communicate like that because we come from all over, right? And the divisions has always been there, right? Different parts, just looking at Africa before colonialism, right? Different parts had different cultures, different practices, different languages, different everything, right? They didn't see themselves as the same people. And the concept of race didn't exist yet, right? Just like England didn't see themselves the same as France or Spain, right? They were able to find a way to come together by using the word white, their whiteness. And this is why I will say the word white supremacy, because I also say I don't like to say white supremacy because they're not supreme, but they were able to create a system and where they are supreme in this system. Because if we go to court, we'll get 100 years, but they'll walk away scot free, and they can control and do whatever they want to do. And just going back, looking at the LA riots, right, and what happened to Latasha Harlem, and one of the key factors in the crime, that woman shot her in the back of the head and got found guilty, even though it was just manslaughter and it was supposed to be murder. But a white woman, this judge sat up there and said, even though she's convicted, I don't think she's a menace to society. I don't think she's a problem. And even though the jury recommended 16 years, she said, well, I'm just going to give her probation. Just now, I don't want to fan the flames of the fire. Because they understand. And, black people as a whole, in that moment, understood what it was. And especially after what happened to Rodney King, because in reality, it doesn't matter what you say you claim. It doesn't matter what you believe. It doesn't matter anything. It doesn't matter what I'm saying right now. If any one of us get pulled over and they feel like, we're causing the issue, they can pull a gun out right now and shoot any one of us and get away with it, whether there's a videotape or not. And if that's not enough to put aside whatever differences is, just to stop that in itself. And that's like going back to the issues with with the gender war, right? Both sides have things we have to be accountable for. As a black man, it was our responsibility to protect the community, to not let this happen. And we did fight. Like, let's not get that confused, but we have to continue to fight. We can't blame each other. We have to go after the enemy. But the problem is the enemy has tanks, has militaries, has missiles, has nukes, right? But you know, the guy next door to you may have a gun, but even if he has a gun and he's the hardest killer in your neighborhood, if the police roll up on him, it's a different story. The police is now the hardest person on that block. And guess what? He can call backup and 10 cops will be right there and make a wall around this person. So why is it that, if the police is messing with me, I can call 10 people right now to come and make a wall, right? Just to make sure the police don't violate my rights. We don't see a problem with that. That's one of the main things, because even though they have guns, right? Understand, they still don't make a move unless they have numbers. Even even with weapons, they still need numbers because they understand the power of numbers. And that's what makes, the military one of the biggest gangs in the world. And the police the biggest gang in America. And they make us fund their own stuff. Right? But I keep mentioning the LA riots. When the people got tired of it, right, they forced the police out of the neighborhood. Right? The police just told white people, don't even go down there to that neighborhood. Because when you look at it, right, it was black people that funded a war, and at the same time, you know, it flooded America with the crack epidemic. But they took so much money out of the black community that it could fund a war. And every single time black people have had enough and they start setting stuff on fire, right? They don't just respond with, weapons and just start shooting, even though they try, but they understand that, they have to do something else, right? They finally start listening to the civil rights leaders and they pass civil rights laws. When Malcolm X and Stokely Carmichael saying, well, if you don't listen to these civil rights leaders, right now you're going to have to deal with us. Then they start listening to those civil rights leaders. Right? And LA during the riots, when they got fed up, right, the police, they couldn't do anything about it. They ended up having to call in the militia. But there's so many people that won't be on the same side. We just have to, understand and move with a purpose. Right? A lot of people say, well, they were just destroying their own communities, but they weren't destroying their own communities. Right? They didn't own anything in those communities for it to be theirs. They were destroying mostly Korean businesses. So, the problem was they just didn't have the direction to replace those businesses with black businesses. And you know what? That's how their businesses were destroyed in the first place. Right? They just came in there with force and destroyed it and looted it. But they replaced our businesses with theirs. And if they would have had direction, it's a purpose to the madness. But I want to give somebody the opportunity to call in. If nobody got nothing to say about it, I'm gonna get up out of here soon. What's going on, Shawala? Call in, said Roberto. What's going on? But you know, black division is something that has always been used as a tool, and if we don't find a way to overcome it, we're always gonna be in the same position. Because the moment we take one step forward, instead of them, the enemy coming to do it, first we have to go through ourselves. And before we had a conversation about, who should we go after first, the enemy or the coon? And some people say, we gotta go after the coon first. Some people say we gotta go after the enemy. But, if we continue to go after the coon first, right? When do we ever attack the enemy? Because we went after the coon time and time again, but we never, really build up the strength to go after the enemy. To me, that's like dealing with a symptom of a problem instead of dealing with the root issue of the problem. So instead of getting rid of the flu, we're just taking medicine for cough. All right.
Phone.
Hello.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press.
Hello.
Hey, brother, it's Shawala.
Hey, what's going on?
Chilling.
Yeah.
All right.
Mhm.
Before I muted my TV this time, I heard you talking about the coon of the enemy first. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I would say the enemy because the coon can always be amongst you. That tends to be a thing. People selling out and being in the midst of you.
Right.
So, but that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to call and say that kind of touch on actually what Brother Bakari was talking about here and there. That we have to unite as a people in the U.S., but we also have to just unite as a whole as melanated people. And I remember your last live you had going. I came in on the very end, and I was saying that I didn't believe I was from Africa. I mean, according to what I found of my family and my lineage, that's just what it is. And someone in the chat room said, well, it's not my fight then. No, it's my fight because I'm still black at the end of the day. And even though I'm in America, I still have love for the black people of the world. You know what I mean? I still feel for them, I have compassion. So, yeah, we got to get on point in the U.S. and fight our fight together, but we also need to support each other. And ultimately, if we have to, fight for those around the world. Those are, we all are one people. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'd say, like, after we acquired what we want out of that, then we can all go our own way. We can celebrate whatever religion we want, live our life, but we just have to be like white people and come back together and be on point when the shit falls, if it falls apart again.
Exactly.
Because that's what they do. They hate each other, but it's nothing for them to like link up and all of a sudden oppress everybody. Right. It's nothing.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, that's all I have to say. I don't really got much to say. If I do, I'll call back again or let somebody else get on.
Okay. Thank you, sis, for the call.
Thanks for taking it.
All right.
All right.
But yeah, she's right about that. They fight each other all the time, They always arguing about stuff. But when it comes to us, they know how to get on cold quick. You understand? Like, we like to say the gender war is only in our community, but it's not. You know, yeah, white men go on radio, on TV, on the internet, and talk horrible about white women. You know, the thing is though, they will protect them when it comes to, especially the scary black man. That's been the whole stereotype of American history, right? They've enforced so much, especially financial racism based on the scary black man and the precious white woman, right? But they had a whole movement, against the oppression they felt by white men, right? White women used the fact that black men, well, supposedly had the right to vote in 1920 as a way to get the right to vote. And but the difference between them is, right? And I don't know if y'all seen it on Facebook, that white woman that's saying, Karen is the new N-word now, you know, but the difference between, them, they understand, there's this whole system that'll back them up. They understand, there's a system of white supremacy, and they'll get on code with white supremacy quick, even though they're arguing. Right? Democrats and Republicans, they may really do not like each other. They may really do have different political views, but they agree on white supremacy. They agree on, oppressing black people, and they'll get on code with that. And the most liberal, quote unquote, white person, will stall you out when it comes to talking about reparations. All of a sudden, it's people need to get over it, right? But we can talk about reparations, not even just for slavery, just after slavery in itself, just for the Highway Act in itself could be reason for reparations. We're not going to talk about the amount of blood that was shed to be able to destroy all of these communities, right? We are the only group that literally picked ourselves up by our bootstraps, right? We don't even have to count that Land Act from the 1860s, where you can go out to California or go out west and get free land. That didn't apply to us. We don't even have to count that, because at some point we had our own communities thriving, even though I do count all of that, by the way. But the fact that they came in and destroyed our communities that we built without the help of the government. But you look at every other group, right? What other group has ever built their community without government funding, government subsidies, some kind of government assistance? Immigrants to this day come to this country and get more benefits than we do. And that's just a fact. And that in itself is a reason for reparations. But the most liberal white person, right, who likes to say they're against this system and want to see things right, will say, well, no, we have to study reparations even more before we can say we're going to do this, even though they know they're not going to do it. Because at the end of the day, they may disagree, but they know how to get right back on code. And to them, our lives are nothing but politics. That's what we have to understand. We try to get up in the political game, but to them, our lives is nothing but politics. And we have to understand how the 3/5 clause is still in effect and how it was used in elections to this day. Right? Like how, for one example, they send, prisoners to a state like Ohio just to give them more electoral votes, even though these prisoners cannot vote. So if they know Ohio is going to win a certain, is going to win Republican or something, they'll just send more prisoners from, Virginia or Florida or wherever. But, this whole system was designed to keep us separated. And, you know, every other group will continue and contribute to all of that. But, you know, we don't respect ourselves. We can't go out and try to force other people to respect us. And whether they respect us or not shouldn't be our concern, because if we're doing us, what other people do shouldn't matter to us as long as they're not violating us. But right now, they feel like they can freely violate us because it's hard to call 10 black people who are armed that'll show up right now, you know, if the police is over here violating somebody's rights. Because, you know, they're not even going to, even if they show up, they're just going to pull out their phones, not the gun. And the police is still going to take that person away, and the same thing is still going to happen. But then we'll sit around and say, well, I can't believe this is still happening in this day and age. You know, it's 1984. I can't believe it's still racism. But that's because it's not black unity. And like the sister was saying, you don't have to say you came from any specific place to understand that they see us the same no matter what. And, you know, I don't want to go after any specific ideology, but your ideology doesn't matter to them. Because at the end of the day, it's about, you know, they got the guns and we don't. They control the food, like the brother said, and we don't. Right? You ain't making no decisions if you can't control your food. We don't even control the education we get to learn about our diet, let alone control our food on a mass scale. Right? These people charge you for water. And most of the planet is made up of water. But yeah, they have the power. But, you know, they don't actually have the power. We give them the power. We have the power. And understand this, because they always say, you know, well, you know, why are you still in America? You can go back to Africa, you know, and I don't even entertain that because, you know, they can drop me off on their way back to wherever they came from, if that's the case. But even if we did go back to a certain place, right, we have to be prepared because believe me, just like they did before, they're going to come to wherever we are and do the same thing over and over and over again, unless we're prepared for it, unless we understand. And, you know, that was the whole point. They tried to do what they did in America without us, right? But they were dying off. They had no other choice but to go and kidnap us and force us to do their stuff. And like I said, back then, even though Spain and, you know, England may not have liked each other, they would have decided, they would have teamed up to make sure you was their slave. Meanwhile, you know, back in Africa, especially with gunpowder, you know, they didn't speak the languages. Sometimes, you know, they didn't really see it coming. And honestly, most of Africa was, you know, uncolonized until the 1880s, until the Berlin Conference. You know, they really didn't go into the interior. But, you know, a lot of these groups didn't, well, some of them did. And, you know, they did unify. But, you know, it was, you know, that was the undoing. They were able to come together, even though they didn't like each other as nations, in order to oppress you and make sure you were their subject. And we're still subject to what they did today. But you know, if anybody want to call in, I've been on here almost an hour now, so I'm not gonna be on here too much longer. And the number is right there on the screen, 804-601-4015. And I'm gonna give it a little second to see if anybody else got anything else to say. And by the way, you want to go subscribe to my other channel, the Forecast Radio 24. The next video will be up real soon. And I don't know if YouTube is going to allow it or not. They might take it off. But, that's another issue. And, it's like I said, there's nothing stopping us as a group right now, just pulling our resources together, contributing, whether it be $5 or whatever, just to make our own website, right? But sometimes when it comes to divisions, people want to argue what the leaders are, what rules we're going to have. But Flame Nocturnal, what up? Hello?
Hey, brother Forecast, I'm calling back again.
Hey, what's going on?
Yeah, so I was just thinking too, you were talking about initially, like, they didn't come into the interior, and they sent people who look like us to come in to the interior. So that's why I say, what I was saying earlier is, sometimes you are going to have to fight your own people. And we have to also, if we actually could get together, the powers that be, we have to, actually even before then, we have to establish something amongst ourselves, some kind of hierarchy. I'm not saying to have no leader, because I don't believe in that, but some form of punishment for people who, not maybe that aren't necessarily going against us, but are just going against the grain. It's just, it's just so much.
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, and I was just thinking too, well, never mind. I ain't gonna talk about that. I just had to hit on that real quick. It was people who looked just like us that came for us with them. So we definitely have to be able to weaponize ourselves. I think I've said that before. We have to stop being afraid of guns. If you're not into guns, that's fine, but don't be against the people who are, because we're going to have to protect ourselves. This is just getting out of control. I mean, it's beyond out of control at this point. Like you were talking about how they are just whipping out phones on the street. I really hate that. I'm not going to lie. I watch the videos, we all do. And it just re-traumatizes us all over again. But it has to come a point when we just stop whipping out phones and we actually start taking action. We did used to do that. We did used to fight, in the 60s, fight the power. Like, it has to happen again, because it's just out of control. It's out of control at this point.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Again, I'll get off.
All right,
Somebody else can call.
Oh, yeah, you good. Thank you. I appreciate that. You can call in anytime.
Yeah. All right.
And yeah, brother, call back in. I'll fuck my brother. I didn't want to cut the sister off. But yeah, they definitely use other black people, but at the same time, even those black people, a lot of them that they use, they ended up getting kidnapped themselves into slavery, right? And those was a lot of people that led some of the rebellions. But again, a lot of it was hard for a lot of these rebellions to fully take place, and that's why it's incredible for the ones that did, because not only did they speak different languages and they wasn't on the same code, a lot of them felt like those were the people who betrayed them, so why would I fight with you now, right? But this has always been an issue that has plagued our community. And like Slain Eternal said, this is a perfect opportunity, right? And I seen a video of this white supremacist saying how, this coronavirus may have been, an Asian tool to institute their financial plan for 2025, right? But this at the same time is an opportunity for us as not only black people in America, but black people globally to get on code and institute our financial plan, right? And when it comes to America, we're never going to get reparations until we're ready to take them. You know what I'm saying? We're going to have to take it, right? But right now is the opportunity to rebuild the institutions that we built, right? We have to rebuild our schools because we have to get back in control of our children's minds. And the internet is helping to change the game a little bit, but at the same time, there is a system where they can control what you see and hear on the internet. Like I was saying, they can just take my video off anytime. They can shut me down right now. But this is an opportunity where we can say, hey, well, look, we can start pooling our money for whatever resources that we need to pool ourselves and do what we ever have to do what we have to do. And we can use this pandemic to create our nation, to create an army, to be prepared to take what we have to take from America. And, especially into America today, we don't really have the language barrier like they did like 200, 300 years ago. But we have other barriers. And a lot of our history, so much of our history has been destroyed. And the average black person, right? If you say, what country do you come from? The average black person could not tell you. And it was a reason for that. And it was a purpose behind it. And anybody can call back in. I guess I'm not gonna be on here too much longer. I just wanted to come and talk to the people, and I want to give everybody an opportunity to say whatever they got to say. And earlier I started this conversation because I was talking to an older black person, and they were getting on me because I said I'm not really participating in the election because Joe Biden is no different from Donald Trump. And they're saying, well, you're out of your mind. If you don't vote, that means Trump is going to be back in office. And I'm saying, what's the difference? Right? But an older black person doesn't necessarily listen to a younger black person. And, it's been a division that's been in America, right? But like I said, a lot of times, like it felt like, it's kind of that older generation, children of the civil rights that was in like elementary school in like the late 60s, early 70s, that kind of feel like, integration is the key and being involved in a political movement is the only way to destroy the system. But it's no way you can destroy the system from within the system. You take the root out, which is racism, you destroy the system completely. And the most liberal white person knows this system at the end of the day protects them. So why would they help you destroy something that is designed to protect them? But we'll fight each other over their political parties, creating more and more divisions. And there's so many we can go by, like I was saying, the one drop rule the other day, skin tone, colorism. We can go by gender, age, where we're from. But at the end of the day, none of that stuff matters because a white Protestant from France will get on code with a Russian Jew before he gets on code with you, even if you share his faith. Right? American slavery literally broke the rules, if there were rules to slavery, right? Where a person couldn't enslave, a Christian couldn't enslave another Christian for life. They didn't care. You was black. If they didn't matter to them if you was Christian. Right? I couldn't keep another white Christian enslaved, but you black. You can't be anything. You can't have no religion. You're not even human. You understand? They understood how to get on code, and they understood how to use their whiteness. Yeah, he used the platform to mass incarcerate us. But this older person I was talking to was saying, I don't care if Joe Biden got every person in my family arrested. To get Donald Trump racist out of the office, I would vote for Joe Biden. And I'm like, I don't understand that, because Joe Biden literally spent like 30 years his political career against you. He said he doesn't want you near his mom or his drug addict son. But you're sitting here defending him and telling other black people to risk their lives. And all right, take this next call. Yeah, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing? It's Wild C44.
Yeah, what's going on, Wild C44?
Nothing much. You know, I think we kind of had a misunderstanding about what I was referring to when I was speaking on the last call about ADOS. And I guess what I was trying to say is ADOS, what Antonio Moore is trying to do is put a fence around American descendants of slaves, right? And all that's for is so they get file a motion basically to get reparations, or to try to get reparations. That's literally what they're trying to do. It's for nothing besides that right there. It's not to say that we not all black, because I'm here and the people over in Africa. None of that. That's not what I'm saying. Like I got something against them. I was specifically talking about reparations. Now, if they're doing something over there in Africa to get paid, then that's what they're doing. I ain't got no problem with that. That's what I was saying. And that's basically what I wanted to tell Bacardi, the guy that was talking to me on there. And when I made the statement, and stay out of it, he was saying that, hey, you ain't going to get no reparations here. Well, this ain't your fight. That's what I was talking about. And as far as Joe Biden, Donald Trump, whether you're talking Democrat or Republican, they're both part of the same bird of prey. You ain't going to get nothing from no Democrat, and you ain't going to get nothing from no Republican. It's as simple as that. They're all racist, and that's a fact. You can go find this stuff all over the internet. And that's how America's been set up. It was racist when we came here, and it's racist to this day. Yeah. And most of the stuff that's going on, if you look at what's going on, they destroyed the currency. That's what's been going on right in front of everybody's face. The Federal Reserve has been stealing billions and trillions of dollars. And what are they doing now? They're really feeding that money that they're supposed to be giving to the people right now, right back to these banks. That's why you're going to have a currency reset. And if I was anybody on this call, I'd be looking into what's going on with the Iraqi dinar and the Vietnamese dong. Oh, and by the way, you can find these two currencies on Amazon if you're interested in looking at what's going on with them. And my suggestion to you is you better be looking. Right. Yeah, because that's what's about to happen. Yeah, everything circles around one thing, and that's money. Money makes the world go round. Money is why black people are in the conditions they are now. Money is why we are, on these different calls, fighting about this, fighting about that. Well, it circles around money. If everybody had money, you think there'd be any fighting going on? You wouldn't have none of this stuff going on. Right. But I suggest you pay attention and look at what's going on with those two currencies that I just told you about. That's all I have to say. By the way, Brother Bakari, I'm not mad at you. It is what it is. That's all I wanted to tell you about.
All right. Thank you for the call, my brother. I appreciate that.
All right.
All right.
Later.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Yeah. And the brother, he makes some good points, and I'm not denying that, you know, money is land, right? And they control the land and they'll take it. But just looking at Africa, now this has nothing to do with the ADOS thing, but when you look at Africa, Africa is the only place that can shut out everywhere else and be all right. Everywhere else needs Africa. And the real wealth is money, not some piece of paper they print up. It's only good as much as they say it. Now, if we had our own economy, our own system, our own infrastructure, we can agree on whatever money is. We can go back to the gold standard. We can be on the same code. The same people that are giving the banks the payouts, they work with them if they're not the same people. Of course, they're going to look out for their own. Now, the problem with us still being, surprised by that, you know, and I'm not saying this brother or, I'm just saying in general, as a people, we're still surprised by things that happen, but we have to expect that. Of course they're gonna look out for their own. They've been taking our money to fund our oppression this entire time, the whole time. They don't have any money outside of our oppression. Their whole system was built on that. And the real financial, the real is the land. And especially if we're not controlling any land. And even if the government can roll up and seize that property, right? And that's power. Now, for me to be able to stop them from taking my land, that's power, right? And for me to have that got wealthy off the oil, it was on black people's land, but they bullied them and just deboed them and took that land, and they built up so much wealth off of that oil that they had. Right now, these black people didn't get paid, and there's a lot of places in Texas this happened to. But you know, but yeah, as a people, what I'm saying, this is the only way to solve it is like, something that we already know that we've been saying for years, that we've always said is unity, black unity, right? We don't have any other choice, right? And even though they don't like each other, they know how to put aside their differences, right? They understand that, it doesn't matter that they had a whole Holocaust on the Jewish people. Do you think they'll side with Jewish people? They'll side with you over a Jewish person? No, they both agree on, as far as white supremacy, you're at the bottom, right? And until we're in a position where, you know, if we see somebody being violated and 10 people can show up and surround that person, like the police can call backup and 10 cops will show up within minutes and surround that person, and they can enforce and do whatever they want to do. Until we're in that position, then the same thing is going to keep happening. But I want to give anybody else they chance to call in. I want to hear what you got to say about it. If nobody else got anything else to say, I get up out of here in a minute. But let me see what y'all saying. Yeah, but as far as these divisions, we're gonna have to learn how to put aside our divisions, and it's something that we never really learned because it's something that we never had before. Race, the construct of race was created, right? We never really had to put aside the language barrier and the religion barrier, but the enemy found a way to do that because they understood that their power comes in oppressing us, and everything they have comes from oppressing us. And, as far as, reparations, let me just say this. It's very easy to prove reparations. And there's a reason why they say we're going to study reparations, not that we're going to pay reparations, right? Because if they ever try to do it, it'll be the last day of America, right? Unless we're ready to take it. But that starts with putting aside whatever differences we have and getting on code and, backing each other up as a group. But, yeah, we definitely have to learn the rules of engagement. But, at the end of the day, we are all we got. And we just have to understand that it doesn't matter what you from, what you do, what you say. They don't care about any of that, especially when they just see you on the street, right? All they know is what they know. And that's what they've been taught. And we've been taught the same thing. And after somebody repeats the same lie for hundreds and hundreds of years, after a while, people start believing that lie. But it's time that we start controlling, and it's important that we control our own media, but it's important that we control the narrative about ourselves, the story about ourselves, and the history about ourselves, because we've been fighting since day one, and we have put aside our divisions since day one, right? But they have done things to try to counter that. But, we have to expect the enemy to fight back, because at some point they will. But, I'm gonna get up out of here. I want to thank everybody for coming in. I appreciate everybody for calling in. I'm gonna be back soon. I'm about to start working on the next video. So you can go to the Forecast Radio 24 and you want to be subscribed to that channel because that's where all the forecast videos you used to will be at. But I appreciate all of y'all. Much love, much respect to all of y'all. Thank y'all. I love talking to y'all. And I want to do this even more, but I'll be back soon. But as always, man, we have got to start standing for something, or we're gonna keep falling for anything.